everybody with Caroline. She'll tell you what to do. Oh, don't you hesitate to get a helping hand. Oh, don't you hesitate to get a helping hand. She knows the line.
All right, 6 minutes after 9 o'clock. Don't forget to vote for your favorite gardener. Carol Baldwin is here. She's a master gardener. So, of course, you're going to vote for Carol. This is an opportunity for you to get the answers to the questions you've been having about that bug that's been eating up your leaves on your trees or your plants, or what to do about the upcoming cold winter.
The winter
that nobody's predicting at all. So anyway, the phone number here is 622-9622. Carol does this show as a volunteer, and so we thank her for that and want to make sure you are aware that you can call in at this time and get your questions answered. So good morning, Carol.
Good morning, Larry. How are you this morning?
Good.
It's a great day out there. It's actually probably nobody else has noticed. Yesterday wasn't as hot.
I did not notice.
Yeah, unless you're outside. Because I spend
it was hot
8 hours. I spend 8 hours a day outside.
See,
and it was, one of those things to go, you know what? I'm working around, I'm this and that. And I did not feel as heated.
See,
so here it is, the end of August. Yes, fall is on the way. Don't miss it.
So here's why I laughed.
Yeah.
Because I spend all day in an air conditioner.
Right.
All right. And we have decided to walk.
Yes, I saw you had video that you were taking a stroll around.
And I'm thinking it's really hot out here. But but I'm never out there.
Right. And of course you walked probably at 2:00 in the afternoon.
3 something.
3 o'clock. Yeah. So and after spending all day
and I know can I tell you why we're walking?
A little bit of physical fitness.
Yeah, that's it.
A little bit.
But there's a real actual reason. Okay.
Yeah,
because we're going to Disney World. And when you go to Disney World,
you have to walk.
And that when I was, younger, it was no big deal. But now I noticed that, oh my gosh, I need to be in better shape if I'm going to go to a place where you walk
and
a lot.
Really be able to enjoy yourself without having to stop and sit and rest.
And just feeling exhausted from simple walking.
Right.
So
and at the end of the day, even it's.
So I always figure if we just walk a little bit every day, we'll be in better shape.
And you will. You'll feel a little better. You get your strength and stamina up and all that fun stuff. But no, it was funny because I didn't pay attention to what the temperatures were yesterday, what the humidity was yesterday, or anything like that. This morning even doesn't seem to be extremely hot. I mean, people don't notice it because, like you say, I'm outside all day. Right. I leave my house, which is air conditioned in the morning. I go up, but I leave my house at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm during the pretty much it revs up, so I start out when it is cooler. So you start to feel the heat as the day goes on. But it was like. A lot of times at say noon or 1 o'clock after being out, you're starting to really drag. And it was like, it wasn't going on like that yesterday. I don't know if it was just.
And I don't know anybody other than you who actually spends that much time outdoors.
Right. Yeah. Without some kind. I mean, we take a break in and run in air conditioning here and there, to cool up. But it was like I don't feel like it was this hot. Even getting in my car. In the afternoon. Yes, I put my sunshade thing up in the windows, and I have the little window screen so I can leave my windows open just a hair to let air circulation go through and that kind of stuff. But usually you still come out, you open the door and you go, oh, it's just oppressive, and you leave the doors open and roll the windows down while you start the car. And I don't know, it didn't seem like it was that bad yesterday.
Do you know what's amazing to me? How much life is in a place that has plants.
Oh,
You go to any gardening center, you go to Bob Wine's, for example.
Right.
I mean, there's a neighborhood right next to it. And yet there seems like there's more birds and more butterflies and more things.
Well, because you've got such a condensed amount of right. Such a in the home landscape, you may only have a few beds that are filled with flowers. And then maybe you have a bird feeder or bird bath in another area near some shrubs. You figure a nursery or garden center, someplace like that, has a concentration of plants in, probably enough for about 10 or 15 yards, landscapes, all crammed into a small area.
Do you ever have somebody coming into you at where you work and say, "Do I want to start a garden because?" I'm curious what the different things are after the word because. Is it because they want to grow their own veggies? Is it because they want an outdoor place?
They want to grow their, some of it is they want to bring butterflies in.
Oh, yes.
Yes, they want the butterflies. They want the activity. They want something pretty. Some of them, they want to grow their own herbs. A lot of people they're into cooking. They're big, so they want their own herbs.
What are the herbs that we can grow?
Parsley, oregano, thyme, pretty much all of them. I mean, rosemary. Now, there's many different kinds of rosemary, but there's a variety of rosemary that grows as a shrub out in the Ocala National Forest. It's a native to us. So,
I need to know how to use herbs.
Yeah,
I don't think I use any of them.
Now you may not buy them fresh, but do you use like
oh my gosh,
a hamburger seasoning when you cook a hamburger?
Salt.
Oh, just salt.
Yeah. What do you use?
You don't do
Tell me.
I'll buy like the Grill Mates or whatever. It's a blend of garlic and pepper and
garlic. I do. Yeah. Okay. So garlic I can grow.
And some of them, Well, garlic's a little harder to grow, but people use parsley or chives. You might put a little chives in some soup.
I never use this stuff. Other people must put it in there for me.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And that's why I say, if you buy some of the packaged seasoning shake on things, you're getting some of them. Of course, you're getting a lot of salt with those as well.
And they stay vital even after they're dried?
Yes.
For an
extent. Yeah. For a certain period of time. They always tell people, if you're not a big user, don't buy that one, that giant jar that you can get at Sam's or something like that, because you're not going to use it all before it begins to lose its quality, its taste, and things like that. A lot of people will grow fresh herbs because people like to use them in soups, stews. They'll use them to make flavored oils or flavored vinegars for dressings, homemade salad dressings and things like that. And so a lot of these different things are used there. Grilling, people like to use rosemary, a few sprigs of rosemary in grilling, mint into, jellies and mint,
All right, in my mind, I'm imagining something. I want to know how accurate my imagination is. I'm imagining that herbs grow pretty quickly and are harvested pretty quickly. No? Yes?
They can be harvested over an extended period of time. Some are annuals that will grow rather quickly. You get your harvest. Some are perennial, where they'll come back every year. Some are what they call biennial, which means they will grow and you can get harvest and things like that and then they don't set seed till the second year. So they're kind of a long-lived annual, or it's like biennial. But you can, you're usually harvesting as it's growing. Basil is one that people use a lot. They'll make the caprese salad, with the caprese tomatoes and mozzarella and basil. Makes a nice little, it's a yummy kind of thing. But all kinds of different, they can be used in many, many different ways.
So they're quicker than corn. That
Correct.
takes a whole season or whatever.
Corn takes a couple months to get corn. Even tomatoes will take you some of your shortest day tomato or shortest length of time are something like an early girl, and that'll still take 55 to 60 days, which is 2 months. Before you begin to get anything, which is pretty quick. Green beans, same kind of thing, 56, 60 days. And your herbs are something that you're going to harvest as they grow. So they continue to produce. You pick and you process. Some people will make make pesto sauces, which you can then put in the freezer. and make, or they'll freeze herbs in ice cubes or things like that. And then you do them out, put them in a baggie. Here you have a whole bunch of these herbs that you can throw in while you're making broth and soup and things like that.
Onions, easy to grow onions?
Onions aren't too hard to grow, actually. They're heavy feeders or regular feeders and quite a bit of water.
I didn't know when those are ready.
When those are ready, they're usually the tops are going to try to die back, or they start to send up a seed, a flower spike.
Oh, okay.
And you cut that flower spike off, and you've got another few weeks that thing will continue to get larger. But you do have to kind of grow those quickly at first, and then they can slow down afterwards. So they're like heavy feeders right in the beginning. And here in Central Florida, we grow what they call short day onions. The Vidalia type, the Granex, the Grano, Texas 1015s, normally the ones that you find as the little live plant. You'll find them, normally you should find them in the stores in like December, maybe January, because that's the best time to put them in the ground. And then you're harvesting again based on, usually it's timed out. When you read the thing on it, it'll tell you, it takes 100 days or it takes 120 days. And so you can then count on your calendar. I'm going to start looking to make sure that these are beginning to die back. And with the onions, it's better to go ahead and you see the tops beginning to maybe turn brown, bend them over. Flatten them over.
Really?
Just bend those things over on the ground, and that helps to close off that top of that onion. So that.
But you leave it in the dirt?
You leave it in the dirt for another week. Let those tops dry, then pull them all up and trim them. You can braid them.
Now that seems to be something that grows right in the vegetable bin in your refrigerator. They seem to be sprouting
and that can be moisture and things like that.
That's
and same way with your potatoes. Well, you don't want them growing in there. They're not going to taste. Usually, I leave my onions on the. I have a 3-tiered basket in my kitchen, and they sit up in there.
Well, you're not only a gardener, you're also a cook.
I like to cook.
So you could take those onions that you buy in the grocery store and actually plant them in the yard, or no?
Not usually.
Okay.
Because most of them, you go and in the garden centers, and of course around here, I'm not being preferential to any one or the other. Bonnie supplies most all your vegetable starts, and they will have the small, sprouted up little onion. They grew them from seed, and now this is the size you would transplant into the garden.
Okay.
And you can do that too. You can buy a package of the Granex seed, and and actually it's almost time. It would be, I think I started some in September one year, but actually the Texas 1015 means you would start them on October the 15th. That's what that number means. The Texas 1015s, and you would just plant them shallowly in a little flat in a sunny area. Let them sprout up, uncover them, keep them moist, and let them begin to grow. If they're getting too close together, you may have to thin some out. But once they've got a little bit of size to them, you're looking at December, you're going to take and put them in the ground. An easy way is just, nobody can see unless they're watching it on the YouTube, is you take the little end that would be the roots and just poke it in the ground. You don't bury them, and that's how you get a nice size.
I have a question about onions. Okay. We actually had I think it was the mayor of Vidalia. We had somebody on it. He was promoting onions.
Right.
Anyway, so if I went up to Georgia and I went to Vidalia and I filled up a wheelbarrow full of dirt.
You better bring me dirt. I was going to say, bring me back.
A wheelbarrow full of dirt. Okay. And I put all that dirt into a garden in my yard and grew onions in it. Would it be the same as a Vidalia onion?
Yeah, because it would be that soil. Pretty much. Moisture and things like that might be. It is the soil. It's the soil. It's the minerals in that soil.
But then once you use it, it's probably not going to work again next year, right?
Hard to say. If it were put in the ground, probably not, only because your natural soils and your natural minerals that are there are going to begin intermingled within that. And then the amendments that you're putting that are available here are not necessarily the same as what you might find up in the Vidalia, Georgia
Have you ever known of anybody doing actually getting dirt from an area that seems to produce a better vegetable?
Not usually, because it's not effective. It's very, very temporary. temporary.
Probably not practical.
Not practical. I mean, I've known people who've had maybe a pond or an area like maybe like a natural retention area, low area, where an area that floods, and so a couple times a year that it's mucky or the vegetation has died where it's filled full of water, and they'll take some of that soil out because it's been enriched with that decaying material. And so bringing that in, so long as it's not something that's had a lot of runoff from the roads or things like that, where you're actually putting a contamination into it, makes so the stuff that you dig out from the front of the house where the water runs down is not going to be something I'm throwing in a vegetable garden. But if you had a swale in the back that, where it's not running off from there. But it's just the amendments we usually do in the garden are things that you're going to either purchase locally, your manures, your compost and things like that, where they're not really from that far away, or we make our own compost and add in from our own kitchen scraps and trimmings from the landscape and things like that. A properly maintained compost bin or system can actually make you some good compost in about 3 months. So you can be adding in, a lazy man's one will get you good compost in about 6 months. So about twice a year you can get some good compost to add to your beds.
What was the article you posted regarding the tomato growers?
You know what? I posted it only because it's like, I don't want to lose this. And I have not yet had the opportunity to fully read it, but it is in the breeding program of tomatoes, because everybody says that tomatoes that you purchase in the supermarket have no flavor.
Right. That's what I wondered about.
And part of this is like the breeding to find out which, looking at the sugar levels and things like that make a good tomato. And I will have to read that article. I just haven't had the opportunity, but I didn't want to lose it. So
that's the one thing you hear about the most regarding
produce
flavor and produce is the tomato. You don't hear about it so much with the onions or
squash or anything else. It's the tomato.
I wonder why.
Because I think because tomatoes are maybe more perishable. Tomatoes are a little picky. I mean, a vine ripened tomato is a tomato that has begun to blush pink. Doesn't mean that it's red. I mean, and if you have tomatoes and say you have a problem with four-legged critters eating or birds eating your fruit and stuff, and you want it to be as ripe as you can, you're going to pick that as a vine-ripe tomato. When it begins to blush, it'll finish ripening on the counter. You don't put tomatoes in a refrigerator. We don't put, a ripe tomato can go. And I don't know if anybody else. I think you spoke of it one time. I've bought ripe tomatoes in the store, sliced them, and had seeds sprouting. And I don't know if that's just a mature seed. No, you've never had it. I've actually had it
with an apple.
I've actually had the tomato seeds where in there it's going, wow, they're actually beginning to sprout through there, but yet the tomato was still firm, and to me, a pretty good tomato.
That is kind of cool, though. Yeah, when you see that
when you
happening.
see some of the odd
that is
stuff.
Not disgusting at all.
No, but you're right. The tomato is the only thing that seems to be one of those fruits or fruit/vegetables that anybody says has no flavor. The green beans, the squash, and all the other seem to be fine.
Yeah, everything else you buy in the grocery store seems okay.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's from the hybridization, trying to get the tomato that will ship better or grow better or be more even sized.
Can I ask you
fewer
something?
Pests.
This is aside from the gardening in the normal sense, but there was a story the other day that a guy was saying that if you eat non-organic beef or any kind of meat product, that you're actually getting small doses of antibiotics because that's what they give to the animals, and that's no good for you. Have you ever heard that before?
I have heard that, but I don't.
And that's a bad thing?
I don't see. I mean, it can be because we so many times the antibiotics are overprescribed anyway.
Yeah.
It's the kind of thing you're coming in, you got a sniffle and a cold, and the doctor says, here, take this antibiotic. You may not need an antibiotic for that. It's just a virus has to run its course. Right. So it's one of those things that, that you're looking at and going, they shouldn't be being dosed with antibiotics anytime close to when they're going to be slaughtered, because that means you're slaughtering a sick animal.
Oh, yeah, it's true.
Yeah, and so I'm not sure, on regulations through FDA and Department of Agriculture and stuff like that. But I know if you read most poultry packages, that they will tell you that these have not been treated with antibiotics, blah 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 blah, and that's because it's not allowed. It's regulation.
Well,
it shouldn't be.
You're always the one who has all the common sense with this stuff. All right, let's go to the phone.
Sure.
Good morning. You're on the air with Carol Ann.
Good morning, Carol Ann.
Good morning, Sonny. Yeah.
I've had compost piles, and I've actually built compost bins where you could somehow. I kept it so that it would breathe from the bottom up and through.
Right.
Now, I had this when I lived on Long Island. My building lot was 60 by 100.
Okay.
And I had compost bins. I kept them actively going. And I did everything with the compost, from just putting it into the lawn to using it for a little garden that I had, etc.
Yeah.
And the first thing you would hear is somebody saying, "Oh, that stinks. That's compost stinks." Well, it doesn't. If you aerate it, and turn it over properly.
If you're not putting in stuff that's not supposed to be in there, no, it should just smell earthy and fresh. Yeah.
But I've had them when we lived on Long Island, and when I lived upstate New York with a larger piece of property, etc. And I know I put almost everything imaginable in the compost bin.
Oh, sure.
And it never had a problem, and it made a beautiful,
good soil, great planting medium.
Well,
yeah.
I wasn't thinking, it's some close to soil, but it's like it's almost like peat moss, but better.
Right. Yeah, it's a great. Well, they call it black gold. Great soil amendment. I guess is the proper term for it. Is that it amends the soil that's naturally in the ground.
I put everything in there from eggshells to coffee grounds to. Like when you're cleaning out the refrigerator, you got some greens and stuff in there.
Oh yeah, the last little bit of lettuce, the top, all the trimmings,
you name it. Everything went in into the compost pile and never had a problem.
No,
like I said, the coffee grounds and almost anything imaginable that is organic.
Yeah, the only thing you don't put in are meats, bones, fat, grease, those kind of things, and processed foods like bread and crackers and things, because those will attract bad insects and vermin. So, but the natural stuff, that the greens, the veggies, and all that. Oh yeah, they're fantastic in there.
But the thing is, you could tell you had the compost pile really working for you if you could feel heat coming off of it.
Yes, that's a proper compost pile.
And to me, it just did a lot of things you could do with the compost that you can't think, you wouldn't think of normally.
No,
like filling in low spots. If the garden, the soil seems hard, you just break it up and put in the compost and turn it over. And I use it in my vegetable gardens from years ago.
Oh, sure.
I've always had, things like cucumbers, tomatoes, pole beans, or, you actually put a thing down with string on it, and the beans will climb up the string.
Yeah, you name it. That compost is great for it in the garden, in the landscape. Like you say, you got a spot in the lawn that's a little thin. Throw a wheelbarrow or so full of that across there, and it's going to help it repair itself. The springtime, throwing a little bit up under the flower beds and shrub beds and things like that. It keeps it going. It is a nutritional supplement to that lawn and landscape.
But one last thing is, in my compost bin, by the end of it works all year round.
Sure.
You can keep that thing going all year round. But by fall, and went around and putting stuff around the plants, protect them from the cold weather. And where I lived, it was cold in the winter.
Right.
And I never ran. I would run out of compost sometimes.
Right.
When during the winter, you just keep building it up.
Right.
So, I mean, it wasn't like it just sat there and fermented.
No, you're right. You used it. You're right. You used it as you went, and you keep filling them back up, and keep it going, so you always have a supply.
Right. Well, anyway, that's what I know about composting, and I had success with it, and
sure.
And I did not have any stinking problems. As a matter of fact, we had a Siamese cat, and the cat would love to go into compost
because it was warm.
Because he could feel the heat coming out. The cat liked to be warm.
Yeah. Yep.
Anyway, have a great day, and thank you, WOCA, for the programming. It's fantastic, and thank you, Carol Ann, for doing what you do. It's really appreciated.
Thanks for being a listener. You too. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. It was nice. All right, we're up against the break. Let's take that break. We'll be right back with Carol Ann. Remember, the show's an hour long, which means there's a half hour to go. If you want to be on the show, call Carol Ann, 622-9622. Did Robin give you some giveaways?
No, she did.
No giveaways today. Okay.
No.
All right, we'll be right back. This is The Source, WOCA. Today is Election Day. An open governor's race has voters turning out in large numbers. Locally, the closely watched race for the District 3 seat in Congress has incumbent Ted Yoho facing newcomer Judson Sapp. Marion County Commissioners Carl Zalek and Kathy Bryant have been campaigning hard to keep their seats from opponents Eddie Leedy and Michael Crimmy, respectively. And on the Marion County School Board, incumbent Kelly King has two opponents, Sheila Arnett and Pete Anderson. Incumbent Angie Boynton is also facing two opponents, Jane Morley and Nancy Thrower, and Bobby James's open seat is being sought by Ed Wilson, Donnie Prophet, and Eric Rubin Cummings. Finally, on the judicial benches, Sarah Ritterhoff-Williams is working to keep her Group 2 position against William Ramputi. Tommy Thompson is being challenged by Leanne Mackey-Barnes in the Group 3 position, and in the Group 4 bench seat, Judge Robert Lant is facing Brian Avon. The bottom line today is Election Day. Please get out and vote, and that is your news brief from The Source. All right, take a little break from the break, and Carol Ann has an announcement. We do actually have some giveaways.
We do have some giveaways. Robin came in, and we just didn't have them out here. We have 2 tickets to the Ocala Civic Theater's production of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, which is playing September 6th through the 30th at the Ocala Civic Theater. And I mean, I think this place played here before a few years ago.
I don't know, but I'm going to see it for the first time.
Okay. But just, I'll have to read through the whole thing another time. But we do have 2 tickets to give away. So when we're going to go to a quick break, anybody want the first person who wants tickets, call in. We'll get your name and your phone number, and we'll pass it on. And the Civic Theater will call you to let you know.
Yeah, that's how that works.
Yeah,
okay,
that's how that works.
So that I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, that's when Live on Stage, beloved Andrew Lloyd Webber musical celebrates its 50th anniversary this year. The humorous reimagining of the biblical saga of Joseph, played by Jose Rivera, takes him from trials and tribulations to triumph, told by a charismatic narrator, Megan Wagger. The timeless tale begins way, way back many centuries ago, not long after the Bible began. So it sounds like it's a lot of fun on that one.
I'm an Andrew Lloyd Webber / Tim Rice fan. I love that stuff. All right, we'll take a little break. If you want the tickets for the Civic Theater, give us a call. Yeah, 622-9622. We will be right back with Carol Ann after this.
Get ready, Ocala, for a whole long list of new savings at Bob Wine's Camellia Gardens in Ocala this week. Check the ad. Go to bobwinescamelliagardens.net, then head on over any day before 4:30, Saturdays till 3. This week, Bob has extra large 12-inch fern hanging baskets, regularly $29.99 for just $19.99. A great selection of nice-sized bromeliads, many of them blooming right now, marked down to $19.99. Close out on daylilies, they're just $1 each. And those wonderful sun patients are now just $3.99. Don't forget the old-timey greenhouse. Inside, you'll find hundreds of items marked down from 10 to 20% or more. And those fall veggies, still just $3.49 a jumbo 4-pack. Don't wait. Get to Bob Wine's Camellia Gardens, Southeast 38th Street, Ocala, just east of Lake Weir Avenue, in the same blooming place since 1952.
Thank you, Bob. 25 minutes before 10 o'clock, let's rejoin Carol Ann Baldwin in the garden with Carol Ann and Kathy. Thank you. Kathy claimed the 2 tickets for the Civic Theater. She's got 2 tickets.
And she did have a request to, talk about the seeds, vegetable seeds we need to be starting for our fall garden. If you have not started tomatoes, I would go ahead and buy the plants. You'd be pushing your luck here at the end of August. Tomatoes would be going in the ground now anyway, but you can get, some squash in, green beans, pole beans, any of those are going to go through. Cucumber, kind of like that whole new spring garden for on a temporary time on that. But also I'd be looking maybe in just a couple of weeks starting your broccoli and cauliflower, cabbage, things like that. I like to start those in trays or in the little peat pots or something like that, because I hate to thin out rows. You always, the seeds are so tiny. I don't care. You're going along doing the thing, you hiccup or sneeze, and next thing you know, you've got 50 plants all in one little spot, and you've got to pull out 49 of them when they're 2 inches tall.
Oh, no.
Because they're just too close together. So if you're starting them in a little seed flat, you can be a little more careful on how their placement is, or be able to move them around a little bit. You can get them pretty close together to start them, because you can then thin them to space them out to grow them till they have true leaves. Some of your other ones, maybe you might want your kale and things like that close together in the garden, because then you can thin out and use the small baby greens first, thinning them out into something that you'll harvest larger produce from. Still a little early, in my opinion, for lettuces, because they just get bitter when they get hot. So give those, at least probably until like the end of September before you really start to go with those. Carrots, I think we may be a little warm, but carrots take such a long time to germinate, upwards to 2 weeks. So you could probably go ahead and get those in too. And if you are looking for seed, you might, figure on getting any of that seed, and even some of those ones you might want for spring now, before those seed displays disappear from the retail centers, only because they have to make room for all the holiday stuff. Mm-hmm. I know everybody hates to hear that, but it all has to transition through. You can't put up Christmas sale items in December and expect to be sold out of them by the 24th. Mm-hmm. So that's why they all go in so early. But and get your seeds now.
Have a phone call.
Great.
Good morning. Thank you for calling and for waiting. You're on the air with Carol Ann.
Good morning, guys.
Morning.
Say, Caroline, Sonny was talking about compost pile and getting hot. Is there a possibility that a compost pile could ignite?
I've never heard of a compost pile igniting. No.
I was going to say, if there was that possibility, you wouldn't want it to be too close to a shed or a barn or something, because you might have a problem,
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard of one, because it's not usually going to be that big. That's usually mostly steam that's coming from the breakdown of things. It's not like the corn silos where you have tons, and it's weight as well as heat and moisture that sometimes you get the silo fires.
Wow.
That you hear of in the corn belt and things like that.
See, the other day I had a taste for watermelon, and I bought it was a smaller type of watermelon.
Okay.
And I got it home and cut it back, and it was mushy.
Oh.
And, is there any way that you could, when you buy one or you're in a store, that you could do something to see if it would be mushy or not?
Not really. Now, did you buy it in the supermarket, or did you buy it off of a guy with a truck?
No, I bought it in the supermarket. I think if I bought it off the truck, it would have been fresher,
Well, but sometimes the ones, because watermelon, though it's grown in full sun, once it's harvested, needs to be shaded and, in order to slow down that ripening process. It could be that watermelon was just old. Depending on, where you got it, the smaller melons, are going to ripen a lot faster. And it sounds like it was one that was just overripe. that they get mealy, they get just lose their flavor and texture, and just not a nice melon. Most stores though, if you call them up and go, hey, listen, I bought a melon yesterday, cut it open, it was yuck, they'll tell you, come on back in, just throw that one away, come on back in and get a new one.
Yeah, it was at a large bin, and they all looked the same.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of picked around a little bit, and I don't know, this one looked better than the other ones, but it was a bad one.
Right. And sometimes when, because they do come in those very large bins, if they've got one bin that's getting low, they bring in the new one, and the old ones will go on top. But even still, some will get mixed down because, like you say, you're reaching around, you're looking for the one that's going to be the right size for you and your family. So some of the older ones may find their way down into the bottom and it may have been there for, a couple of weeks maybe, and not noticed because it's not rotting on the outside. It's just the inside is overripe.
I would say the watermelon season in Florida is kind of, it's over with. And this probably came from Alabama or Georgia.
Actually, they could be coming from way further up north by this time. But watermelon, we can get, again, that's another one of those crops that they could be some Florida watermelon coming back in if somebody planted a second go round.
Yeah. Well, okay. I'm going to go to the store this afternoon and I'll complain about it. Like I said, they'll probably say go pick up another one.
Sure.
And hopefully, I'd like to take my knife along and cut it in half at the store, but I don't think you can do that.
Well, don't bring your own knife, but if they have a produce department, they may cut it for you.
That's an idea, so I'm going to give that a try. But I never had that experience before where I had a wishy watermelon.
Yeah, it happens every so often.
Yeah. Okay, have a good day. Let's hope for some rain.
All righty, you too.
Thank you, Hugh. Let me just real quickly promote the Facebook page that Carol Ann has created to be a counterpiece, a companion piece to this radio show. I love it. It gives us a chance to see the things people are talking about. And if you have something in your garden you want to share or brag about or ask about.
Ask about if you got a bug, you got a problem, because it's so much easier to diagnose a problem if I can see it. I mean, yeah.
By the way, the worm last week.
Oh, that's right. I never did. That's right. I never did because I got one product. I was thinking the systemic being something that would have been good for it. Actually, it's not on the label.
Oh, really?
And that it's and their only recommendation was actually a topical spray on. I looked at the packaging once I got over to work. I said, yeah, it's listed, and that was the Bayer. They had it as the 3-in-1, the insect disease and mite product on the bagworms. But I meant to look further at a couple of other products as well to see if, and this, in my thought, what they're controlling is the adult. They're controlling that moth in order to prevent.
The egg wouldn't be laid in the first place.
Right. Yeah. Right. And that's a lot of times what you have to do. Same way with, say, the leaf miner that we get on tomatoes and citrus and things, is that you're looking to control the adult pest before
but
it
that
lays
was
the
cool.
egg.
That thing last week.
They were pretty neat.
Yeah. So. I did want to bring it out to the sidewalk here and see if the birds would enjoy it.
Eat them,
but it went in the trash.
Yeah. I figured somebody would be looking at you weird if you're sitting back watching it.
Watch to see if a bird
see if something comes to eat it.
We had a lot of birds here this morning. They're just gone now.
There's some seed ripening possibly in trees. If you look up in the palm tree up there, the former flower there, it looks like most of that is all dried up. They probably have been picking the berries or they've dropped off, and so that the birds have been eating them off the ground over there. And some other insect pests, I'm sure, or just insects are around that they're also feeding on. So it's an active time of year. They too are putting on calories this time of year, whether or not they're ones that are going to migrate further south or
I wanted to
ask
you something.
Yeah.
You posted a video of a squirrel at the store.
Oh, going after the burlap.
That's what it was getting, right? The burlap.
Yeah.
So, to make a nest?
Taking pieces to make a
nest. Cool. That was cool to see that.
It was kind of going, you crazy squirrel. I mean, our squirrels have a tendency to almost try to get tame, but it's not like, it's like, come on, keep trying to chase them off of things so that they don't get accustomed to a customer walking right up to them, because I'm afraid somebody will get scratched or something, and that's not good. So.
Do you know, I was listening,
or very startled.
I was listening to a podcast, and the podcast was talking about urban animals and why some animals seem to be plentiful in urban areas.
Right.
And the conclusion, I don't know if this is scientific or not, was that the hawks and the things that will eat pigeons and squirrels don't like people. So they decide, hey, I'm hanging out where the people are. So that's why there's squirrels and pigeons in
areas,
cities.
and that there's a food supply.
That's probably the biggest reason I'm thinking.
Raccoons could be that they have adapted into those areas, into urban areas. And actually I don't know, it's probably been a year ago. If somebody wanted to look up, I think I watched it on PBS, was one they called I think it was the coy wolf. And it's where actually the wolf has bred within the coyote. And so you have a hybrid animal there, and that those, if I'm not mistaken, that those are actually into some of the intercities or into some of the city areas, because they are feeding on the feral cats and things like that.
Really?
That a new predator has come through, and that that they and the rats and things like that they're that can be an issue.
But squirrels and pigeons seem to be the two biggies. Okay, let's take the phone calls. Right. We got a few coming in. Good morning. You're on the air with Carol Ann. Hello.
Good morning.
Let me try this one.
Maybe lost you.
Maybe we dumped it and bumped it. Here we go. Let me try this one. Good morning. You're on the air with Carol Ann.
Hi, good morning, Carol Ann. Sunny again.
Yeah.
On the compost piles, one of the things that you do have to do besides turning it over to help speed up their composting action is you have to put water on it.
Yes, you do. Yeah.
Even though it can get hot, and it'll still probably stay hot, but that water is there helping the decomposition.
Right.
Of everything that's in the compost pile.
Yeah, the correct moisture and the correct mix of green and brown material is how that helps to heat that up and break it down.
Right, but anyway, I've never ever heard of one going on fire.
No, I haven't either.
Maybe it has happened, but it was because the compost pile was neglected or just abandoned or whatever happened.
Right.
But anyway, thanks again for your programming, and thank you, Larry, and thank you, WOCA. Have a great day.
You're always welcome.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. All right, we got a good 12 minutes left. If you want to call in, the number is 622-9622. And if you got something hanging on the tree and you wonder if it's cool, if it's a problem, if it's
just something different.
What is the solution when you see, and I don't know what time of year this is, I feel like it's more in the spring than it would be now. But you see the big web of caterpillars, and sometimes they'll be all over a tree.
You have the eastern tent caterpillars that you usually find in spring. And those will be up in like the cherry laurels and a lot of the fruit trees. And those are a springtime pest issue. They're voracious eaters. You can't spray up onto that and kill them because the webbing there protects them from any insecticides. This time of year, you actually have the fall webworm.
Oh, really?
That is up there, and again, another pest issue. But they're way up in the tree, and so it's very difficult to try to get a control over. Most of the time, trees and things like that can live with the damage. But if it's a young tree or a tree that's already stressed for some other reason, you may need to try to get some control within that. And watch.
And again, as you always say, read the labels, right?
Read the labels.
That's your mantra. Right?
It is.
Ready for the next call?
Yes, please.
Good morning. You're on the air with Carol Ann.
Hi, Caroline. You again, real quick. Compost pile subject is kind of interesting. I was just thinking, I don't live too far away from the baseline garbage.
Right. The landfill.
The mountain in Marion County, the highest point in Marion County.
Right.
Now, all that garbage in there has to be making heat, right? And how do they do they vent that somehow, or what happens when all that garbage gets together like that?
Well, you figure all that garbage, there's so many different areas in there. There's actually methane pipe coming up out of there from the gases that you'll actually see some of that burning off, or those gases coming out of there. But I think with how it is spread out, it's not just piled up in a column kind of thing, like say a silo is, and there is so much different material in there. I don't think that you have that issue on things going to be that hot that it's going to actually try to catch on fire or anything like that. The methane gases are vented out so that you don't have those problems. And usually as far as I know, they actually have a flame on those. Some communities or municipalities actually, I think, harvest that methane to use as an energy source. I think they've talked about it here in Marion County, but nothing ever came of it because of the expense on trying to do that, and I think people's concern on safety issues. But I don't think I've ever heard of an actual landfill catching fire. I have heard of that the mounds of tires and things like that, but I'm not sure if those have always been like, say, an arson issue or something like that, or if the mounds of tires. I don't think they can spontaneously combust, but I could be wrong as well on that. But you hear of tire fires, but I've never heard of a landfill actually just spontaneously combusting for no reason.
Yeah, I often think about that large mountain of garbage, and underneath that mountain is the aquifer. And I hope someday that doesn't start leaking into the aquifer, because that would be a big problem, and I don't know how they would correct it.
No, and as far as I know, I mean, again, that it's been there for a long time, but they're like double lined nowadays. All landfill areas are, that it's a double kind of thing. And so, you would hope, or, to me, better to bury it on the ground than take it out to sea, because we all know that what's going out to sea is coming back.
I recently had a visit there, and I talked to one of the employees, and they said they've got about 2 years left, and then there's no more room for anything else.
Right.
And what they're doing now is they're shipping some of it up, I think, up into Georgia at a landfill up there.
Right.
And they're going to start another landfill somewhere south of Lake County, I believe, someplace. Yeah. But we got about 2 years left of our mountain.
Right. Yeah, it's one of those issues. We make a lot of garbage, a lot of trash, and a lot of waste has to be put somewhere. And where do you put it? I mean, there's a lot of things that can be recycled and reused, a lot of other things that could be composted and reused in a different way, but hard to get it all through. I mean, even with people who want to do some of the recycling, we now no longer recycle glass. So here's something else now going back into the landfill. My daughter doesn't live here in Marion County, but where she lives, her apartment complex, they'll come pick up your garbage right from your doorstep, but you can't recycle. They don't have a way of recycling, even though they'd like to. So it's one of those things that it's not universal throughout the area or throughout the state or anything else. So don't know an answer to it.
Yeah, let's just hope and pray that thing doesn't start leaking in a few years, because who's going to be in trouble? It's going to be the villages with their 100,000 people and growing, because the aquifer flows from underneath there southward to that area. Yeah. So that could be a very big problem.
Yeah, I'm sure there's monitoring wells that they're checking on a regular basis because of just because of that, and it would be devastating to the southern end of the state of Florida. Yeah,
well, it's always going to be a problem, garbage, and I don't thought, well, why can't they incinerate it and have large gas furnaces or something to get rid of it that way? But I guess that's no good either.
Yeah, it's a whole issue of a pollutant one way or another.
Yeah. So. Okay, well, it's something that we live with, and I guess we're going to send our garbage up to Georgia.
Yeah, in a couple of years, I'm sure. Yeah, we'll have to be addressing this issue again.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot. Yeah.
And if you'd like to call in, the number is 622-9622. The area code is 352. By the way, I see a few people looking online, so that's always fun.
Yeah. And one thing, just as something. Anybody who likes their chrysanthemums, everybody thinks of mums as being a nice, that harbinger of fall. And I happened to mention that it was a little cooler yesterday. Mums are coming into the stores. I guess you probably have seen them maybe in some of the stores, but they are coming in. At least in where I work, they are mums that are grown out in the full sun. They're grown down in Miami or Homestead, so they're in the heat. They are accustomed to that. When you're watering your mums, don't let them dry out. When you buy those mums, get them fresh. Don't water the flower. Water the dirt, because you put the water on the buds, and those buds are not going to produce a flower. That water seems to sit right in the top of that bud when you overhead irrigate, and then next thing you know, those buds are shot. They all come into the stores really tight budded. So I mean, it's because it is early. To be bringing them in. It's the end of August, 1st of September. So watch those. Watch when you get them. They are coming in. If you're wanting them, get them early, realizing how fragile they are. I personally, in the retail side of it, I don't like mums.
I've actually wondered about the watering of the plant because I'm kind of new to this.
Right.
So when I water the apple tree, which is the only thing I water, I pour it right in the dirt.
Right.
But I think if it was out in the nature, the rain would be hitting every piece of it.
It's going to hit every piece of it, but that's a different setting. It is because it doesn't, when we water with a water wand, it's here's the little fake flowers.
Right.
We're watering all of it, and the water's sitting, and we're not watering it necessarily at the right time. Nature does the same thing. That's why we have disease issues and things like that, is because it is watering, but we can control what we water or how we're putting it on. So, if you're watering, micro irrigation's going on closer to ground level usually, or if you are watering with a garden hose, you have your wand, you can water the ground versus the plant, or even watering at the correct time so that it's drying before the heat of the day and like that, but also dry before it gets dark. Because that's usually, we end up with the fungal problems, watering too late in the day.
So does nature sometimes handle the fungal problems? Is there a bug or something that eats the fungus?
Sometimes there are actual microorganisms at times that you can introduce into a landscape, and that they would be ones that would help to fight in an organic manner. Not every fungus has something like that. Sometimes it will just run its course, or you can take out the bad plant and stop the spread, or take off the bad leaves and things like that. Or that there are commercial products that you can apply to plants to eliminate them. But a lot of times the best thing to do is to try to do it as a preventative, which would mean proper spacing of plants so that they get good air circulation. When you, as the gardener, watering correctly, meaning down at ground level, because it's the roots that they're going to take up the water. The leaves don't soak it in, and that when we can't control what nature does, but we can control what we do. So keeping a garden clean. Some people say, leave the weeds because it attracts beneficial insects. Your weeds also harbor bad bugs too. So and more moisture and things like that, or possibly even fungal problems. So keeping good hygiene, good housekeeping in the garden helps to keep a clean garden. Some of the preventatives are, commercially you can get some of the same bacillus strain, some of the strains of bacillus fungi are ones that will take over fungus issues instead of, just the mosquito Bacillus thuringiensis. So they're ones that will take over and knock out some of the fungi, but also some of the oil sprays and things like that will smother fungal spores, preventing their spread. And wow, I hear my music.
There's your music, yeah. I wasn't sure if it was the right one. We're out of time. You have to work today?
I do, yeah. So gotta make the paycheck.
But is it a lull right now?
It is a little slower, so we're getting a little bit of catch up on it and things like that. So.
And then
the holidays.
start. Kick in. Yeah.
So.
All right. Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you, Larry.
For everybody else, the show doesn't end here. You go to the Facebook page. You can be part of this all the time on In the Garden, the Facebook page.
That's it. Just ask to join. I'll say yes.
All right. We'll be right back. This is The Source, WOCA Ocala.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA Ocala.
Fox News Radio. I'm Lillian Wu on Capitol Hill.
Did you have a conflict of interest? Mr. Orr, will you take our questions?
Justice Department official Bruce Orr ignoring reporter questions.